What's up, YouTube? Mr. LawMSC here, and today I want to talk about things that I want to see in Diablo 2 Resurrected, and this is finally going to be that fun video where I'm not complaining about all the bugs and glitches and all that stuff. I'm going to be saying, let's bring some new stuff to Diablo 2 Resurrected, and so I want to go ahead and give you some of these ideas. Now, this might also get a little more controversial because I'm sure there's going to be many of you that are like, no, don't do any of it. And, you know, I understand that. That's totally fine, right? I get it. This will probably have more people that dislike the video. But there's not a dislike bar anymore, so nobody sees your dislike. Ha-ha! Okay. Let's start, anyways, in our general tab. Number 1, or number 0. I would like there to be 3 game modes overall. Classic, LOD, and Resurrected. And in Resurrected is where all of these changes would exist. That way, for all of you who just jammed the dislike button, you can now press the like button on the video because it's okay. LOD would still exist in its whole form right there. There would just be an additional Resurrected version, just like there's a ladder check, right? I think that would be a great way to do it because they did talk about having balance in this game. And that being something like they mentioned that in a post, we're considering some balance changes. And so if they were doing that, I would say, hey, let's do it in a 3rd mode right here. So that way we don't mess too much with LOD, right? Now, moving into number 1. You know, after all the discussion and honestly after seeing the other limitations, I think I'm more on the stackable gems and runes train. The main point behind it is there's a 20 character limit right now, which I hope they get rid of. The stash space still feels kind of limited, which I hope it increases. But really just the limitations on the amount of space that we've had, I feel like, you know, maybe bringing in stackable runes and gems would just be better because I don't have any more room to have mule and mules full of gems and runes because that takes up my character space and I can't do that anymore. So the fact that I can't have all those mules anymore now has pushed me to the point where I'm like, well, in that case, just give me stacks, right? Give me a currency tab like PoE has where I can just stack everything there, or just let me stack it wherever I want in its own tab. I don't care, but I'm kind of on the train now of stacking those things. Number 2, I would be more... I would like to see more stash tabs. I still don't think unlimited tabs is required, but I do think having probably 10 tabs would be enough. The biggest thing is the 4 tabs is very nice. I love the 4 tabs. Don't get me wrong. But once again, with the character limits, the things we've seen there, 3 of them being shared and only 1 of them being the mule tab, which the other idea is maybe giving it 2 and 2, 2 shared, 2 mule, or 2 personal. So then you have a little extra space, right? Overall, those sorts of things I think could be helpful. It just feels like maybe like 5 and 5, or I don't know, you know, even 2 and 8, something like that would be nice. It just feels like there could be a little bit more space. If you gave us a rune and gem like stacking though, I feel like it would make it easier. But right now it's like I have an entire tab where it's just runes. I don't even have a place for gems, really. I only have 2 shared tabs where I'm putting all the gear that I'm kind of sharing between characters and using for trading and all this stuff. And I'm very, like, it's very clustered still, right? There's not enough. I need a little bit more space. And so I would be down for having a few more tabs. So that's my number 2. Number 3, and this is where we're going to start getting into some big changes. I would like to see some melee changes in this game. Now, I still love the idea of melee being difficult, being a different experience. That's something that, like, I felt like for PoE, it wasn't enough for me because everything kind of ended up still feeling the same, right? You could still have melee builds that, like, blew up the whole screen. I'm not getting into that. I don't want there to be all this splash and all of that stuff. But I would just like the calculation for chance to hit to maybe even just in PVM to remove the level dependency on it or adjust it greatly where it's not such a penalty. Because the thing is, even if you stack up your attack rating, even if you're doing all of this stuff, if you just go up to normal Bale and you're level 34 and he's level 60, you just can't hit him. That's it. You just cannot physically hit him because the level difference is such a large part of the calculation. So I think the calculation for chance to hit should be adjusted, especially because caster characters have it so easy since they always hit, and it's just the easiest thing in the world. I think making melee characters be able to hit a little bit more would be really beneficial to them and could make a lot of playing through the game on a melee character a lot more fun. Or even a physical, just any physical, even ranged, right? Because right now, everything is just in a difficult spot right there, right? It's just like the characters are so weak, and a lot of that comes down to they just can't hit. And it's because they need high attack rating and high level, and so you need both good gear and to be leveled up, and that just doesn't really work when playing through the game. So I still enjoy the difficult experience of it, but that is the one part that I think for Melee really needs to be changed. Number 4, changing how Diablo clone is spawned. Maybe make it simply like single player where you sell an SOJ in a game and he spawns in just that game or something along those lines. Or you need a few SOJs, or you need 20 standard of heroes or something else, right? But the current system, especially we're seeing it here in Resurrected, is just not great. It's just not a great system, and because the dupes don't exist, and maybe there's some dupes somewhere, but mass dupes of SOJs don't exist, now it's like the only way that people are getting Annies are when streamers like myself set up community times for everybody to contribute all their SOJs, and then we can go sell the SOJs to spawn the clone and all of this stuff. But it's just like a whole thing, and even that has its difficulties of us having to go and get people to find the IP and give it to so they can have the games and give the games to the right people and make sure everybody gets a game. And it's a very big thing that I feel like shouldn't even be reliant on us. It should just exist in a way that is easier for other people to spawn. That's kind of my thoughts right there. Number 5, this is a simple one. Let us see item levels. Nothing worse than not knowing if the charm dropped from, this guy or not, from Nilithak or one of his minions, or the mobs around him, things like that. I feel like having a little more information, eye levels, area levels, things like that, would be very nice for people and just be super helpful for crafting purposes and for, just everything, right? And that information's already in the game. We've had mods that, have shown it. So just showing it for us. Number 6, I would love a combat log, honestly. I think not only would it be helpful in seeing, learning and seeing how much damage someone did to kill you and whatever sorts of things like that, but it would also be helpful in finding some more bugs and stuff. We can say, hey, this is burning this much damage in this amount of time, and in, Legacy, it's only doing that much damage in that amount of time. So, I think a combat log would be very fun to see and give us a little bit more information that we can work with. Number 7, allow online players to use /players, but only if they create a solo game online. This game is not joinable by anybody else. It is purely a solo game where they can set the player count for farming. This is something that I had to be swayed on a little bit, but swayed in the way of it needed to be a way that I felt would work for you guys as well, right? The technology for Blizzard had to kind of be there, because if you're having somebody, who creates a game and then they could change the player count, but now it happens when another person joins and too many people join, but they wanted it lower, right? there's a whole thing, and you could have it constantly pushing up and all these things. But it was like there was too much stuff there that I was like, I just don't like any of that. So I didn't like it for so many of those ways. But then I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? If they can just create the game and it's a solo game and it can't be joined and nothing else can change, then it can be perfect, because then people can go in and they can farm there. And this would be very helpful to all those people who essentially don't have friends and can't get the 8 people, in the game, constantly going around with the party and all that stuff. And maybe they could if the lobbies were better and it was easier to meet people in lobbies to do those things. But right now, the lobbies are not good at all. I have a different video on all the lobby changes I'd love to see. And so it's very difficult, right? It's tough. And so what they're doing is they're going into random trade games or random bail games, and then they go off and do Mephisto and do LK runs and all that stuff. But then everybody's doing that, and so now all the games are flooded with people that are just trying to get into games that have player counts. That's it. They're just in all these different games because they just want to be in a game that has a higher player count than P1. But now all those people in the game are pissed because they're like, I'm trying to kill Endariel, and 6 people came into my game to magic find, and nobody's helping me with Endariel, right? It just turns into a giant mess. So if they can create farming games for themselves, and it's just for themselves, or they can go farm on their own at a higher player count, whatever it is, then I think it would be a lot better, and that would be a nice compromise and a nice solution to the issue of it right there. And number 8, what I would like to see is I would like to see a timer in the game. I know we have the clock in the game, which is nice, but having a little timer in the game could be nice as well. Also, the game name password thing, I'd like for that stuff to be kind of fixed up as well, right? Being able to see the password there, and but the party screen has it. I don't want it to be shown there, right? Like that whole thing, it'd be really nice if I could just put like a little logo blocker up at the top right and stuff. Because sometimes you forget the password, or sometimes there's capital letters in the password because you can't remember if you had caps lock on or not with that stuff, or you accidentally hit one too many numbers and now you don't want to go wait 90 seconds to create another game. You just want to say, oh, I accidentally put a 2 in there, right? It's 1 2 2 3 instead of 1 2 3. But if you accidentally make the game and you have that disabled, then you don't know what your password is, and you can't like tell your friends. So it's a whole thing. So that is all of the general changes. Now I'm going to jump into item changes, and then we'll do another video for the character and mercenary changes. For the items, this one might be controversial for sure as well, but I would say remove grief. And now when I say I remove grief, I probably don't mean fully remove it, because I think people would actually get pretty pissy if they tried to make a grief and then it just like bricked because the runeword was removed. But grief, it just destroys so many things in the game, right? Like no other weapon is just like viable. I mean, you have your rare instances, but in so many cases, it's just like, well, you just put on grief. All right, I got grief on my barbs one hand. What should I put in my other hand? Should I put death? Should I put ebutted? Put another grief. Oh, okay. Well, then now I've got 2 griefs. It's like grief is just so much better than everything else because of that flat damage add. Something needs to be changed in that capacity. Maybe even buffing how other damage works or other weapons. I don't even know. But I just know grief really is just such an increase in power compared to everything else. And that is probably my least favorite runeword of all runewords. And, enigmas exist and spirit exists, and there's other things. But, enigma actually I feel like still has some purpose in it and whatever. And I don't want to remove that. I think that's a different can of worms. But grief is my number 1 complaint with that. That being said, number 2 is about spirit. I think we need to make staves viable again. Spirit came into the game and was like, Talfol or Am, oh, you can get those runes in normal for nothing. And it's a late game, end game item that is insanely good and makes every single staff in the game, except Rib Cracker if you're like a melee druid or something, makes every single staff in the game worthless. Even if you find that beautiful, Mang Song's lesson, it doesn't matter because an orb and a spirit shield, so much better. And so I feel like there's some ways that this can be changed. And once again, I'm not here to provide every solution for it because I feel like that's developers create solutions, players identify problems. But I'm just here to kind of more identify the problem, but I can give some general ideas and discussion around it, which is staves are too weak probably right now. I think they should be buffed. Additionally, there could be more unique runeword shields with FCR and some resistances that could also there's two problems here. One is that Spirit is better than every other shield for any caster, so no other shield matters anymore. And at the same time, Spirit is so good that staves are also worthless. So the two things are, one, there need to be other alternative shields that have a place essentially for a caster besides like a 2020 J-mod and, some of that stuff, right? There needs to be some more shields that can really go in those slots with FCR and things. They should be probably a little bit weaker and not spirit levels of damage. And staves should just be more powerful overall. I just think there's really terrible variety in the shield with FCR and staves sections of this game. So that would be my thoughts for number 2. Number 3, I think more crafting in this game would honestly be super fun. I don't think it needs to be Path of Exile levels of crafting. Or even something as, as much as Median XL or whatever stuff. But I played a lot of Median XL, and the crafting there was honestly super fun. Being able to try and craft some really strong melee weapons at the end of the game and stuff for my barbarian was really an interesting idea, using the different materials for crafting. Having a way to kind of dump gold, dump materials that you find, all of that stuff I thought was super cool. There's also maybe more potential crafting that could happen along the way in the game. There's more stuff that you could craft with FCR. There's more stuff you could craft, just for breakpoints, right? Again, one of the best parts about Diablo 2 is that the itemization is so beautiful. And that's because you're constantly looking at, where's my FCR at? Where's my FHR at? What's my FRW? What's my, all of these things. And then trying to figure out your strength and dexterity for your gear and balancing all of that. Balancing how much magic find you want versus gold find versus whatever, right? All these different things, you're constantly balancing it with all of those other stats. And so if you can do stuff like, ooh, I can craft and get this ring to be 15 FCR, but then I'm not going to have, it can't have these other things on it. But it doesn't matter because I'm hitting this breakpoint that I needed instead of getting, whatever, right? There's all of these intricacies. And so being able to have those little crafting abilities between the different items where you can, oh, now I have this boot as an option to hit this FCR breakpoint or whatever it is through a craft, but I'm not going to get all these other attributes and things. It's just more fun options. I think it would be interesting. Number 4, more ways for physical damage characters leveling up to have better options. And this goes back to a little bit of what I talked about before. This could be through crafting. This could be through uniques. This could be through other rune words, though I feel like there's already kind of some rune words in that area, so I'd kind of prefer the other things. But essentially, physical characters just have it a lot more difficult. And this isn't just for the hitting aspect, which is one of the main issues that we talked about before, but this is also because a lot of items don't really have a ton of great damage on them, it feels like. And so when you're just a physical damage character trying to hit for decent damage, it's not till you get to the end game items that you get all these massive damage boosts and things and 320 ED and whatever stuff. So I feel like there could be some more uniques or some adjustments there in the middle and earlier game that just give a little more physical damage. So some melee characters and Boazons and whatever stuff can do a little more than, well, I'm just a Boazon and I'm trying to play multi-shot guided arrow, whatever, and I just suck because I'm trying to do physical damage. And until I get to Wind Force or Faith, or, you know, even you can make things work like a Bariza or an upped Gold Strike or whatever, but it's still not amazing. It's just okay and serviceable. So, just a thought there. Number 5, I think we should allow for upgrading of set pieces in the cube with recipe, just like you can with all the uniques. I think it'd be nice to be able to, you know, have a Demon Hide Death's Belt or whatever, right? Small things like that. I don't think it would break much or anything of the game too much. But hey, now my Nats boots can be upgraded and whatever, right? Just something small there. Number 6, upgraded Saigons. Yeah. Number 6, create more use cases for Cham and Zod, and mainly Cham. Cham is just one of the saddest high runes to exist, and I'd just love to see it get a little bit of a buff. I'm not someone who is going to suggest making it where you can down cube everything. So you can like take a Zod, make it a Cham, take a Cham, make it a Jaw, take a Jaw, make it a Burr. I'm not sure I'm on that train of thought with it exactly. But I just want to get more excited when a Cham drops, essentially, you know, instead of just being like, ah, man. That's all. Number 7, make large charms interesting, so I want to pick them up. There's just so few things that large charms can actually do better than other charms, and especially because skillers exist, and so you're generally running your skillers and then your small charms underneath. I think having a little bit more interesting stuff on large charms could be cool. And number 8, allow me to pick up Unid, Annie's, Torches, and Geed's charms, and even if I have one in my inventory, just don't let me identify it, right? As long as it's unidentified, allow me to pick it up so that I'm not having to constantly go back every time I'm doing a torch or every time I'm doing anything. A Geeds drops in a game, I go back to this inventory, put it in my shared stash so I can go pick up that one and bring it back and all that. I'd really like to be able to just pick it up and then you just can't do the identification. That would be nice. That would save a lot of time and hassle. So I feel like that really kind of covers my item changes overall. And obviously the general changes as well that I talked about earlier. I know that there's some in there that, like I said, are going to be controversial. You're going to say, nah, I disagree with that, Llama. And that's okay. I'm sure there's also many of you that are saying, we want more. And that's also okay. This is just my personal, if we were going to patch 1.15 and they were going to do some changes to it and going to bring some new stuff to the game, make a couple shifts in it, I think this would be a great way to shift it because it still stays pretty true to Lord of Destruction. It's not a mod, right? Some of you are like, oh, you just listed Project Diablo 2. And it's like, you say that, but I didn't at all, because PD2 has 5,000 changes, and this has a few that exist in that game and a few that don't. But that's okay, right? The whole thing is just like, I just want some minor changes here that could improve certain things in the game, but still very much feels like Diablo 2 and is not getting too far away from it. So, like I say, it's okay if you guys agree or disagree. This is just me sharing my own personal thoughts, my own personal opinions. I'd love to hear yours down below in the comments. And, last thing I can say is just be respectful, right? Of my opinions, other people's opinions on it. That's all. You can say, oh, I don't think that would be great. I think that's a fine way to say it. To say, you're ruining this game, you idiot, Mr. Llama. Maybe that's not as nice, right? So maybe just, think about the words that you're choosing when writing comments. But, I'm talking to YouTube comments here, so it is what it is. Regardless, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Would love to hear your thoughts down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace, YouTube.